Today on India Revival Mission, we have a very special guest who has a pulse on both the urban as well as the rural recovery and what really is happening with demand on ground. Please welcome me in joining in Bharat Puri, the MD at Pidilite Industries. Bharat, hi, good evening. Good to have you today on ET Now. Hope all's well and everyone at Pidilite, the entire family is doing good.
Yes, thank you, Aisha. Thank you for having me. And yes, the Pidilite family is hale and hearty. In a large family, yes, you have, some people who are not as hale and hearty given all the conditions, but overall nothing to complain about.
Good. Right now the only worry is whether you're positive or negative and if all's well. Good to hear that. So tell me, is it as good when it comes to what you're hearing with your ear on the grounds about how growth has been for the last 2 months, that's July and August, given that you are still seeing some sporadic lockdown in a couple of states?
See, it's very local. I mean, there is no doubt at an aggregate level that July and August is obviously better than May and June. Having said that, frankly, sales is directly proportional or rather inversely proportional to the scale of the pandemic. If the pandemic is still raging, then obviously consumer confidence and the consumer movement itself is restricted. And therefore, in discretionary categories such as ours, you will be impacted. So if I look at the whole country, the northern region of the country, the central region of the country, rural India, semi-urban India is near normal. I can't say it's normal, but it's near normal. The big cities, the Mumbai metropolitan region, Pune, Surat, Baroda, Chennai, Calcutta, these are still impacted and are still nowhere near normal. And they're still a fair distance away from normal. So at an overall level, I think the markets are getting better, but are they normal? No, absolutely not.
I can imagine. But is rural recovering faster than urban? At least that is what channel checks across industries seem to be reporting that. And in terms of growth, have you reached a point where rural can actually make up for urban?
See, rural is definitely doing much better than, and actually consistently since May when, parts of the lockdown started getting lifted. Since May, rural and semi-urban, the small town India, has been doing much, much better than urban India. It can't make up because for most organizations such as ours, it is between 25 and 30% of sale. So the 30% can't make up for the 70. But yes, it is one of the silver linings currently going forward.
Bharat, being the leader in the adhesive business with a majority market share, we are seeing that there is increased competition from other branded players, not just the unorganized market now. How well are you placed, given the kind of environment that we are in and the competitive scenario, to try and maintain your leadership?
See, Aisha, competition is going to be inevitable in an open market, and as leaders, obviously, lots of people are going to look at our share and say, we wish we had some part of it. We're no strangers to competition. Every large multinational, global multinational, a lot of the Indian players, a lot of people are still there, have tried their hand at adhesives, are trying their hand at adhesives, but we have a very simple policy. Finally, I must please my consumer and customer a little more than they do. And I shouldn't, spend too much time looking over my shoulder, but I should spend a lot more time pleasing my customer. And as long as we do that, we will remain happy.
But you know what's happening, Bharat, that all of us have been cooped up in our holes, in our homes, and I'm purely talking about the urban cities and the big cities. And it's not just the pent-up demand, but you're feeling the need to refurbish, you're feeling the need to correct this and that because you've never spent that much time at home, and thereby you're noticing the few glitches here and there. Do you think that demand has potential at least to grow? And then thereby from urban cities, can you actually see some demand at least trickle in, or better perhaps?
That's a great question. Aisha, if you look at the Western world, which has been stricken with the pandemic and in a sense is a few months ahead of us, today across Europe, there is actually a boom in furniture, home furnishings, as well as homes. And really what consumers are saying is, if I'm going to spend a lot more time in my home, then I better make it as livable and as happy as possible. That hasn't still happened in India largely because in urban India still there are a large amount of restrictions. A lot of buildings, I mean, if you look at the city of Mumbai where you and me stay, a lot of buildings are still not even allowing workmen in. So I think as it opens, yes, people will concentrate on homes. Indians naturally are house proud. I think we will see some amount of resurgence in spends on the home. It's when consumers feel confident that yes, it's now time for us to actually be able to do this.
Do you sense that Diwali could play a big trigger? I know it's delayed this time around. It's in the month of November because, if I look at all the data points which are coming from the Amazons and Flipkarts of the world, the fact that Amazon is actually hiring the way they are at a global level and the kind of sales feelers that you're getting from Flipkart, it seems that Diwali is going to be that big tipping point.
I think Diwali, see, clearly any time when consumers are willing to dip into their pockets and make larger purchases, and furniture, for example, is a larger purchase. I mean, I must tell you as an aside, some of our categories where the consumer does it themselves, which is repair, which is, for example, hobby colors. Home painting has gone up tremendously, which is, artistic painting. And in parts of the country, in Kerala, etc., actually artistically doing up your walls has become a major trend. So our whole acrylic artist colors business is actually doing very well in this phase. Hopefully the same will extend to house proudness as far as furniture is concerned and as far as, making the house a little more beautiful, therefore waterproofing it is concerned. So I do think it will happen. It may take a little bit of time. It's a function of the consumer just feeling confident and safe that they can now go out and do all this.
Okay. So as a category out of the few that you mentioned, what's really holding up and what's not?
See, from a consumer and bazaar perspective, wherever the consumer has a do-it-yourself element, that is, for example, actually coming back very strongly. So whether it is fixing small things, as I joke, my wife says, if you're sitting at home, why don't you fix this and why don't you fix that? The good thing is we have products for all of that, and we're seeing that all of those products are actually the ones that are helping. I mean, similarly, a lot of people sitting at home, a great stress buster is actually just sitting and coloring, painting on your own. That is doing extremely well. Waterproofing, is something which is immediate. I mean, when you see the rain and if there is a leakage, you have to address it, and therefore that is coming back much better. The other consumer discretionary categories will probably take a little more time as consumers get a lot more confident, feel that yes, the worst of this is over and it's time to, go back to near normalcy again. But at an overall level, I think consumer and bazaar is coming back well, much more, as I said, in rural and semi-urban India, lesser in the metros. But it is on the right track and I think it's in the right direction. I think it will keep steadily growing and organizations like ours will gain from a lot of the smaller regional players because of our all India footprint, the fact that we have factories across all locations, we have reach right till the last village. In periods like this, consumers also turn to trusted brands. So I do think in this period, we will also gain market share.
Good to hear that. So will you be able to post a positive growth volume picture for FY21?
Yes. FY21, given that you've lost 3 out of 12 months, 9 months are never going to make up for 12 months, right? I think right now, all of us are looking at this week by week, as I keep saying, we are flying the plane visually. And therefore, I would say we remain cautiously optimistic, but each, this is going to be fortnight by fortnight, month by month as we go forward. And hoping the situation keeps getting better. I think these 9 months will definitely be much better than most of us have expected.
True, absolutely. It's a virtual world that we're living in, as I always say. But tell me, innovation is well ingrained in Pidilite's DNA. You have a knack of identifying user needs, addressing these through product innovation as well. What are the new products that we can expect from you? Because like you said, it's more DIY than call people home and put yourself at the risk of the virus. So are there any product innovations that you would be looking to make?
See, Pidilite, absolutely, yes. I mean, innovation is part of our DNA. That's what we are known for. We've obviously, in a sense, recast our calendar given the current situation. We've just launched in Punjab and Karnataka a whole range of sanitizers and wipes. But these are not sanitizers and wipes for the consumer so much. we actually believe it is about making our tradesmen safe. So these are for our carpenters, masons, plumbers. I have 200,000 carpenters, each of whom employ a number of contractors. And therefore, I look at that, I look at masons, plumbers. How do we make them safe? How do we make them feel safe? How do we certify them as safe? So that when they go to consumers' home, consumers feel safe. And therefore, there's a whole lot of innovation around that. There's obviously innovation, as I said, around the whole area of home painting, the acrylics and the artist colors, fine art colors, so on and so forth, because that's a trend, obviously, which is catching on. Like this way, the whole area of do-it-yourself sealants, do-it-yourself protective coatings for wood. These are all of these areas where we feel that there will be a lot more consumer do-it-yourself, and we're already in the market with some of these products, and some of them are on the way.
Okay, good to hear that. What's been your assessment though of the state of the economy? Because like I said in my introduction, you perhaps can give us the correct channel checks about both the rural as well as the urban trends. And when is it that you really hope to see a meaningful revival come in? Or would you say the picture is still very hazy up until when a vaccine is going to make its way OTC? You can't really have anything conclusive.
See, I think it is quite hazy, and it will remain hazy because finally consumer confidence is a function of two things. Consumers feeling safe. I keep telling my field fellows that the moment you feel safe enough to send your parents out shopping, watch, demand will be fully back. And the second thing is about consumers having money in their pockets. Both of these, I think, are therefore things that should happen in actually that order. Order one, the pandemic lessening in intensity and hopefully at some time going away. And secondly, consumers then feeling a lot more confident, having money in their pockets and willing to spend. I think this is something that probably a month, 2 months later, and these may be famous, quotes, because 2 months later, earlier, all of us were saying, hopefully by June, July, it'll be clear, by August, but actually, it is no clearer than it was in June. But hopefully, therefore, as the pandemic comes under control, I think a lot more will become clearer.
Tell me, Bharat, can the government play a big role here? Can the government do something to try and revive sentiment, or do you think it'll have to be, or rather the cues will only come in from science?
I think the government has two roles. One is obviously managing the pandemic, both between the central and the state governments, communicating. In a nation as large as ours, if until a vaccine happens, hygiene, social distancing are critical, then we need a far greater communication program to do this. We have to educate people that, you wear the mask covering your face and nose and not around your chin. Now, I'm just giving you a lighthearted example. So there is a whole communication and management role on the pandemic. And then it is about putting money in the pockets of the consumer. The poorer the consumer, the more the money in that order. But consumers must, there is clearly an impact on livelihoods. And as the government puts money back in the hands of the consumer, that's what will spur demand.
But tell me, in today's globalized economy, Bharat, where demand, production, needs, everything is global in nature, the big is only getting bigger, and we talk often in the stock market lingo about what's happening to the Teslas and Amazon and Reliances of the world, wherein you're seeing money actually move, or business actually move to just these large dominant players. What is the visibility that you have when it comes to India being self-reliant, or would we have to continue to depend on the global counterparts?
See, I think self-reliance is not just about, everything being done by India. It is, to my mind, self-reliance is us being clear that we're able to meet all our basic and hopefully value-added needs in the most cost-effective way. And whether that is done by a good Indian company or a good multinational, that is really then out to the marketplace, may the best person win. And I think a nation as large as ours, I think for us to be therefore at an overall level self-reliant in terms of managing our own fortunes, absolutely yes.
Okay. You've often spoken about how the core business has been doing. That's your Fevicol, Fevikwik, M-Seal, and the kind of growth numbers that they've been, clocking. What is really leading to this kind of consumption churn on a quarter-on-quarter basis? And let's skip the 3 months of lockdown here. And how is it that you actually plan to achieve these big numbers? Believe that you've also given a projection of these three brands growing at about 1 to 2 times of the GDP.
See, we're very clear, Aisha. In our case, fortunately, our categories correlate very well to GDP growth. If people's incomes grow, if the nation's income grows, well, then they invest in new housing, they repair and renovate their homes. When they invest in new housing, they waterproof their homes, they buy new furniture, they repair and renovate furniture, they buy objects which break and then they put them together again. Their children go to school and have lots of art and craft projects in which they participate with our projects. So really, for example, simply the single biggest driver for growth for us is economic growth. But having said that, we're not happy just with growing with the economy. Then comes innovation, then comes premiumization, then comes rural consumption, and each of these therefore helps us grow each of our brands. If you look at something like Fevicol, while everybody knows Fevicol as this one lovable big umbrella brand, there are over 200 SKUs in Fevicol. There is the Fevicol for waterproof wood, there is a Fevicol for heat resistance, there's a Fevicol for air conditioning ducts, a Fevicol for flooring, a Fevicol for foam. So like this, basically, we're constantly innovating, we're constantly saying that if anything needs a long-lasting, unbreakable bond, we will be the ones who provide it. And in a growing economy, there's massive scope. And the same applies to a lot of our other brands. Take waterproofing. Even now, 3 to 4 out of 10 homes in India do any proper form of waterproofing. So really our competition is non-consumption. We're competing against non-consumption. We have to educate consumers on the benefits of doing this. And if we can expand that 3 to 6, everybody's happy.
I also want to talk about, Bharat, how big an issue is really the migrant laborers for you? Because, your products, besides the DIY category, which I'm assuming would be very small right now, involve a lot of labor. Have those issues been ironed out, or are you still facing hurdles there?
No, I think it will probably be until Diwali, until the issues are fully ironed out. They're improving pretty much week by week as labor is coming back, but there are still labor shortages. We're in touch with all of our contractors. Our contractors tell us that about anywhere between 50 to 70% of the labor is back, but it will probably take a little more time right up to Diwali by the time all of the labor comes back. And frankly, this is going to be a function again of demand. As business comes, if people have jobs, they will come back. So as business improves, frankly, migrant labor will come back. Right now, it is not fully back.
Sure. At your end though, what's been your communication to your contractors to try and bring the migrant labor back? Because most routes of transportation have now opened up and it's a possibility for them to return.
No, as a lot of the labor works for larger contractors, and we're obviously in touch with the contractors. Now, what we're doing is we're doing this whole campaign around first training them and their people for safety. Tomorrow, if you have to get something done in your home, you must feel safe that the contractor who comes to your home is following safe practices. In a sense, he's almost certified. So we're actually certifying our contractors, doing products for them, teaching them how to, therefore, in a sense, sanitize, make sure that, all practices are safe, and then certifying them for that. We're doing this for our waterproofers, we're doing this for our carpenters, we're doing this for our plumbers. This is a massive exercise. But really, this is about making sure that they get their livelihoods back, they get their business back. Just to give you an anecdote, in the April-May period when all business was shut, we actually worked with Paytm where we actually monetized the loyalty points of our contractors into money so that they would have money in the time that they didn't have jobs. Now this has got us a tremendous amount of goodwill because, the contractors really appreciate the fact that here was the company that thought for them in April and May. We said, listen, go ahead and withdraw your loyalty points as money because you need to, pay children's school fees or even keep your home fires burning or whatever else it be. So an organization like us, one of our secret sources is user marketing. And this is something that obviously we're constantly innovating. Just to give you another instance, we've actually insured against COVID all of the workers of our major contractors. We're therefore again to give them the confidence that God forbid anything was to happen to them, their people are insured. Now we've done this, free of cost for our contractors.
When you look ahead, Bharat, do you have clarity or visibility in terms of when things could get better, or would you say it's still hazy and it's a big question mark as you look forward?
As I said, I think it's hazy. I think as the pandemic lessens in intensity, things will get better. I think the key is, as I keep saying, the more the pandemic curves flatten, our sales curves will start going up.
Your last decade has seen you foray into multiple new categories as well as businesses. As you look forward and assume that this virus is not going to last too long, I hope for that and sincerely pray for it as well. Where do you see the next 10 years for Pidilite?
See, we're very clear, Aisha. Pidilite is a company, we are a pioneer. We spot unserved, underserved categories. We fill those with brands, not with products. And then we work tirelessly with both consumers and users until we create categories. And, that's why we classify our business into core categories, growth categories, and pioneer categories. Pioneer categories are the categories which are tomorrow's growth categories. Take something, I'll give you an example. Take tiling. Today tiling is fairly common in India. World over, when anybody puts tiles in their homes, they add sand, cement, and adhesive. In India, pretty much 10% of the people do that. 90% actually use only sand and cement. As you get larger tiles, you have vitrified tiles. The tiles are falling off. The tiles are getting displaced. Now, this is a classic case of a Pidilite pioneer category. We believe we have a brand which we've launched called Roff, which is in the tiling adhesive space. Here again, our job is to educate the tile layer, educate the consumer. But listen, if you want long-lasting flooring or long-lasting bathrooms in your home, this is how you need to use the product. If we do that again, if the 1 out of 10 becomes 3 out of 10, that's tripling the market. Now, that's a classic case of a pioneer category. Like this, in the last few years, we've done a number of new ventures, joint ventures, acquisitions. We bought the largest company in the marble and stone adhesive space. Now, this was owned by the largest Italian company in this. They're the world leaders in marble laying all across the world. We bought their India operations because we believe as marble, stone, granite becomes more popular, anything that you need a long-lasting, unbreakable bond, Pidilite will be there. And therefore, we're not only looking at today via our core categories of Fevicol or Fevikwik or M-Seal, we're also looking at tomorrow via Dr. Fixit. And we're looking at day after tomorrow via, say, tiling adhesives, tile grouts, ICA Pidilite, which is our premium wood finishes company, CP, which is our flooring company. So we have let's say a full game plan. We're clear we're a long-term player. We believe in India. We believe in the future of India. India is our home market, but we would like to be an emerging markets multinational.
Okay, Bharat, on that note, may the Fevicol ka jod remain as mazboot as ever for the next 10 years and even beyond as well. Great to have you today on India Revival Mission.
Thank you. My pleasure.